Hey guys, so I thought I would do a video today aimed a little less geeky, one aimed more at end users than at system admins, and figured I'd talk about fish. Give you some examples. Since I'm looking at fish every day in my day job, I thought I would go through several examples and show you what some live actual fish look like, the kinds of things they try to get you to do, and the kinds of scams they do to try to get you to do those actions. So basically, a phish email consists of some sort of scam and an action that they want the user to do, sometimes associated with a threat and some sense of urgency. That's why they sometimes use a threat, is to try to get you to do whatever they're asking you to do right away. So this is an example of one. It's just fraud. And you can see that this is sort of the simplest form of phish. There's no link, there's no attachment. They're just trying to get a reply. But the way you can tell this is obviously a phish is the broken English. And you may want to pause the video from time to time to read through some of the email message bodies as I go through these. But you can see that the English is kind of poor, and look at the from address. I mean, do we really believe that some European debt recovery unit is going to use edrunity@gmail.com? That seems pretty bogus. Note also that I'm looking at the from address and the reply to address. The from address can be anything. It might actually be legit. It's not in this case, but I mean, some phish will have a legit looking from address. That's because the email clients don't show you the real from address that was used. They show you what they're showing you here is decorative. But the reply to is where, if you reply, where the email is going to go back to. So, and the fact that these don't match, that's another clue that it's probably a phish. So here's another example of one. This is just extortion, frankly. It's just outright extortion. And I actually find it kind of laughable. The English is incredibly bad. The premise, well, sucks. And they want you to send them some Bitcoin. So basically, just on the merit of this horrible email, give me some Bitcoin. So yeah, that's a phish. This one's a little more interesting. So here we've got one that my mail client is Thunderbird, and by default you can see that it does not include images that are supposed to be loaded from an external website. And you can see that it's blocked that remote content. If I click on preferences, you can see where it's coming from. And that's actually a legit looking domain name. That may actually be correct. A lot of phish, they will use whoever they're pretending to be. They will use images from their website to make their email and their web forms look credible. But the giveaway here is they're attaching an HTML web page with a fillable web form. So if this was really coming from American Express, surely they would just give you a link to the American Express website, one that you could actually see and you could tell that it was legit. But no, you can see they've got this bogus HTML page. If you look at it, you'll have to trust me on this. You'll see that the HTML file does, if you know and understand HTML, you can open it not in a web browser, but open it in an editor. And you can see that the form does a post to, not to American Express, but to some other bogus URL. And so it's clearly bogus. What they're trying to get you to do is to go to their web form, put in your email address and a password. They're claiming that will authenticate your account, or they want you to put in your American Express number and a PIN and maybe the security code on the back, things like that. Basically, they're trying to steal credentials or personal information from you. So yeah, don't fall for that. So here's another one that's similar. And again, it looks pretty legit. right? It seems to be coming from DHL.com. Remember how I mentioned that those from addresses are decorative? They're baloney, or they can be baloney, and the email client will just happily display whatever the sender says to display there. But what they tell, if you look in the email, they tell you to click the attachment to download and print. Well, the attachment is a .r00 file. Basically, you can think of that, it's a RAR file. You can think of it kind of like a zip file. It contains other files, and no doubt, if you open this up, it actually contains an executable. It may be a file that's something .pdf.exe, but it's ignore the .pdf. It's actually an executable. It's actually a .exe file. So yeah, that's bogus. Nobody's going to send you, FedEx and UPS and companies like that, they're never going to send you a RAR file or a zip file and expect you to open it. So that's bogus. So here's another one. This is another DHL one. This one, instead of including an attachment, they give you a URL. But look at the URL. If you look at the bottom here, when I hover over a link, it shows you where the URL will go. And deadcelldeadfriend.com. That doesn't sound much like DHL, does it? And look at the from address. No reply at webhostmanager.com. Yeah, that doesn't sound at all suspicious, does it? The no reply I could maybe understand, but having it come from webhostmanager.com, yeah, that's bogus. So here's a fake fax, and this one is similar to the first DHL one we looked at. It has an attachment. You can see that it's allegedly a .doc file, and it is. Unfortunately, Office files are untrustworthy. They can contain executable. You should not just blindly open a doc file or an Excel file or a PDF file or a PowerPoint file. All of these can contain executable macros. So just for grins, I actually opened this one, saved this one as a file, and then opened it up in VirusTotal. And as you can see, it's what's called a Trojan downloader. So the doc file, if you open it, basically it says, oh, this document has a password associated with it. You have to execute scripts in order to open it. Click here to allow the script to execute. Well, if you click there, the script executes, it downloads malware from some other site and then executes it. And now your system is infected. So, yeah, bad thing. Don't do that. So here's another one that I see an awful lot. It's somebody pretending they're interested in your product. I get fake invoices quite a lot too. This one, look at the type of file that it is. It's a .doc.r00. So yeah, you can ignore that .doc. It's not a document file. It's a RAR file. If you open this up, this would no doubt contain a PDF.exe or something similar that when you open it, it doesn't run Acrobat to read it. It's a program. It's an executable, and it would just execute it. So don't do that. The message body looks kind of suspicious as well. And if you're not expecting to get emails from just somebody in the UAE expressing an interest in your product, it's probably false. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. You know, that old saw, that's often true with fish as well. Swift copy. So I have a sneaking suspicion that Swift copy is referring to some banking transactions that are normal, but if you're not in banking, why would you be getting this? The reason I say that is that I see an awful lot of fish that contain Swift copy or just Swift somewhere in the subject line, and they're talking about payments and transfers and things like that. So here's one you can see that attached is a Swift advice payment made to your account. So yeah, if you come down here and you look, here we have a PDF.r00. Phishers used to use .pdf.zip or .doc.zip an awful lot, and I guess people have started blocking zip files, and so now they've switched to rar or .r00 or any number of different files that Windows will still happily open, and unfortunately not too many people are blocking them. I guess a lot of people that can't, right? They need that functionality. If you don't absolutely have to have R00 or RAR be allowed in your email services, block them. They're almost, I've never seen a legit RAR file or R00 file in an email. They've always been phish. And again, if you're not expecting some email, or you get an email like this, it doesn't tell you anything, you should be immediately suspicious. So again, we have Swift copy, a forward of array. Yeah, that's almost always, that should be raise your BS alarms a little bit too. Of course, you could have a forward of array of a reply that happens, but that combined with an email that just says greetings and nothing else, yeah, come on. And then look down here. What are they sending us? .xls.iso. Now, ISO is a new thing that the file format's been around half of forever, but I've only just recently started seeing phishers use it. Apparently, newer versions of Windows will open up an ISO file the same as they will a RAR or a zip file. Basically, what it is, it's a file system image. So you can think of it as a file type that can contain lots of other files. The reason they're starting to use it is that an awful lot of anti-spam and anti-phishing software will open up attachments. They'll open up RAR files and zip files and things like that and look at the contents and then look for suspicious file types inside of them. But a lot of them are not looking at ISO files. So that's why they started using ISO. Somebody noticed that Windows would open an ISO file and they said, oh, let's do that. So here's another one that I thought was kind of interesting in that it doesn't have a threat. There doesn't seem to be any sort of urgency or scam. It just says, hey, we've got something free to give you. And maybe you actually do have something to do with Qantas. Maybe you have used their services. But if you hover over the link again, look at the host name, dveripolese.com. And .ua, .com.ua. So, yeah, they want to look like a .com domain, but it's actually .ua, which I believe is the United Arab Emirates. So, yeah, that's more than just a little suspicious. Why would Qantas, which I believe is an Australian company, why would they have a website in UAE? They wouldn't. So if you click on this link, you're just going to self-infect. You're going to compromise your own system. You know, actually, something I did not show you that maybe I should. It is possible to test these URLs. If you're very careful, don't click on it. If you right-click on it in most email clients, you can say copy link location. Don't do save to file. Don't do save link as. Do copy link location. That puts it in your clipboard. And then you can go to sitereview.bluecoat.com and paste it in there and say, what do you guys think of it? And sometimes they'll say it's a URL shortening service, or they'll say they give it a variety of different categories, but this one is obviously it's phishing. So yeah, that's clearly one you should not click on. Here's another one, but this time it's UPS instead of FedEx. And here you can see this link looks legit. This is why I included this one. Sometimes they'll contain some links that are legit. What they really want you to do, if you read the message body, they want you to click here. And if you look at that link, LosAngelesConveyor.com, No, that's probably fake. Here's another one where there is a sense of urgency. This is one that I think a lot of people already are aware of, but because it's so prevalent, I thought I would include it. People still fall for these. Anytime somebody tells you your mailbox is almost full, click here or it's going to get shut off. Somebody did something suspicious with your email account, click here to change your password. Anything like that, and it sounds urgent, you probably should just get on the phone and call your mail provider. Don't use any phone numbers that are in the email message. Don't click on any links in the email message. Use some alternate method of finding out how to contact your mail provider and call them up and say, "Did you send this? Is this legit? Should I be worried?" And sure enough, if you look at the link, it's bogus. And I included this one because at first glance, this one looks like spam. If I cut and paste this text and stuff it into translate.google.com, it looked like spam to me. It looked like it was advertising something. But if you right click on the link and say copy link location, and you give it to Bluecoat here, what do you think of it, Bluecoat? It says it's phishing and suspicious. So more than likely, one person reported it as phishing because it is a phishing link, and somebody else said, "Oh, by the way, if you click on this link, you'll infect your machine," and so it's also categorized as suspicious. And then one of the last couple that I wanted to show you. This is one that's been making the rounds for several months. They've been mostly, not entirely, but mostly targeting Japanese speakers. Claims to be from Apple. And see, this one you can tell from the subject line, the message body, if you cut and paste it into Google Translate, it says something along the lines of, if you don't click here, we're going to lock your account. It's been used in some suspicious activities. Click here and you can unlock it, something along those lines. But look at the URL. It's ow.ly. Whenever you see one of these URL shortening services like bit.t.co or bit.ly or bit.do, or in this case, ow.ly, you should immediately be suspicious. And look at the from address. That's not Apple. Folsomshop.com. That's not Apple. Same fisher, different fish. The message body was slightly different. And this case, it's not using a URL shortener. It's actually using a redirector service of some sort. This one, I think, is a redirector service that this fisher set up. You can see the host name on the URL is url.javacode with a 0 instead of an o.us. Yeah, that doesn't look at all suspicious, does it? So these are some examples of what fish commonly look like. Whenever you get something like this, slow down, stop and think. When you get a something that claims to be from Amazon saying they tried to deliver but you weren't home, stop for a moment and think, are you expecting anything from Amazon? Even if you are, mouse over the links. Be really careful. Don't just click on something. Mouse over it first to find out where it's going to take you if you click on it. If they say open up this attachment, you should be super extra suspicious. Don't open up attachments. They almost never, if they're included in an email that looks even remotely suspicious, they're almost always just going to install ransomware on your machine or install a remote access toolkit and take over your machine or install a bot client, and your machine will start participating in brute force attacks and things like that. So hopefully these examples will help you identify some of the fish that you're getting. Be sure to report them to your email administrator. or ask first. If they're paying attention to fish, getting these sorts of reports are very valuable. That gives people like me useful intel on things they might proactively block by. So, for instance, this fisher, we're blocking all of his fish now because we've identified all of these new throwaway domains he's registered, and we're blocking the fish either because it's coming from a domain that we're blocking or because it contains a URL to a URL shortening site that we're blocking. So email admins often value getting examples of fish or being told, hey, I'm getting a fish and this looks suspicious, especially if it's something that looks like it might be targeted. Then they can send an email to the rest of finance or the rest of HR or whatever group you're a member of, and they can give them a heads up, tell them to be a little extra wary of a particular type of email.